If you work in any kind of business where you deal with customers, then you know that oftentimes that can be a real challenge. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with an angry customer face to face. So if you've worked in the retail industry for any amount of time, or any business for that matter, where you're dealing directly with customers, you know that that can be a challenge. Oftentimes when people are upset about things, they're going to take it out on the person that they have contact with. So what's the best way to deal with a customer face to face that's angry with you? So before we talk about some specific ideas, I want to share with you an experience that I had a few years ago in a grocery store with a teenage cashier and a customer who was going through the checkout line ahead of me. So I was standing observing, and as this teenage boy, he was probably about 16, maybe 17, he was ringing up the items for a gentleman that was probably in his 50s. And as he rang up the different items, there was one item that he rang up, and as the gentleman was watching, he saw that it rung up for a different price than he thought it was. And so in kind of an angry tone, he stopped the clerk and he said, "Hey, you just rang that up wrong." So the boy said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he reached and he took the item and he checked it. He scanned it again and looked at it. And then he said to the gentleman, he said, "No, I'm sorry, this is what it's ringing up as." And the gentleman started to get angry and he says, "No, that price is wrong. It's supposed to be this." So the clerk, again, just calmly said to him, "Okay, well, let me just run and check." And so he left and he ran. He went to the aisle where this item was. And he came back and he said, "Sir, I'm sorry. I saw why you think that it was this price, but the price that you thought this was actually for a different item." And the gentleman got angry about that and just kind of said some mean things to the clerk. And the clerk then said, "Sir, I'm sorry about that. If you would like, I can take this item off," and basically asked him, "Do you still want the product?" And the man said, "No, I still want it." And so the boy rang it up. And then it was interesting to see what happened, because the demeanor of the older man all of a sudden changed, because I think he realized it was his mistake. And when he finished up, he basically kind of apologized and, before he left the store. And as he left, I turned to the clerk and I said, "Wow, that was pretty good of you to handle the situation that you did." And he said to me, "Well, I know that sometimes when people are coming here, they're having a bad day or whatever, and it has nothing to do with me." So pretty impressive for about a 16-year-old teenager to handle a customer in that way. And then even more important to see, how did the customer respond to that? Oftentimes we hear the phrase that, the customer is always right. Well, the customer isn't always right. And the question is, how do we handle those situations in a way that everybody kind of comes out a winner? If we just give in to a customer who is not right, basically what we could be doing is teaching that customer that by being a bully or being angry is a way to get what you want. It may be a way to kind of cheat the system. And so I think it's important that we be honest and that we are accountable, but we also hold other people accountable. So here's a couple of suggestions of how to deal with a customer who's angry. First of all, don't take it personal. So recognize that we don't make other people behave in any way that they behave. We can't control them. All of us control ourselves. And so if somebody is behaving in a way or treating you in a certain way, that has nothing to do with you. It has more to do with them. So don't take it personal. don't get defensive about that, because again, it's not about you, it's about them. What's really important here is that we want to make sure that our communication is effective, because probably what's going on is that somewhere there's some misunderstanding or miscommunication that's occurring in this relationship. And so this, in the example that I just shared, what the young man did was he listened to what the gentleman was saying, and then he checked it. So he was told that the price was wrong, so he scanned it again. When that wasn't enough, he went and double checked. And when he found out and he knew that where he was at was correct, then he shared that with the gentleman, and then he allowed the gentleman to make a decision about what he wanted to do. So he didn't give in to what the man was saying at the time. He checked to see if the man was correct or if the price was correct. When he found out what the truth was, then he was able to communicate that back to the gentleman, and then he was able to allow the gentleman to make a choice based on the correct information. And I believe because the clerk was able to respond in a way of not getting angry, not feeling attacked, and then not responding in that way, the gentleman felt the response that was coming from the young man, which was a feeling of acceptance. That influenced the gentleman then to respond in a way where basically he apologized for his behavior. He was able, I believe, to learn from that experience. I think that young man's behavior probably had a huge influence on him, and I'll bet that the gentleman left the store reflecting more on his behavior and how he treated that young man than walking out of there feeling like he had been cheated or mistreated by someone in the store. So 3 basic keys or tips in how to handle an angry customer. First of all, don't take it personal. Recognize that it's not about you. It's more about the other person. Second, don't get defensive. Again, because it's not about you, you don't have anything to defend. Stay open and remember that it's about communicating. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about figuring out the truth. So if we can join with the customer in saying, okay, let's solve this problem. So now we're working together on solving the problem instead of you're right and I'm wrong. And then finally, recognize that we are in control of our own behavior. Others don't control us. So I have a choice to act and not react. When I react, oftentimes what happens is we escalate the situation and tend to make things worse rather than better. So if I can choose to act towards the person in a way where I understand that this person may be having a bad day, maybe there are other stresses or things going on in their life that has nothing to do with the interaction that just occurred here in our relationship. If I can understand that, if I can see that person as a person, not as an object, I can behave towards them in a way that, again, engages them together in solving the problem. I'd encourage you to try it out, to practice in your interactions with the customers that you may work with in your job, and see if you can turn it into a game. Instead of getting upset when you have to deal with negative customers, see if you can turn them by influencing them by the way that you respond. Instead of allowing them to dictate or determine how you're going to behave, you choose how you're going to behave and see if you can influence them. So have some fun with that. If you accepted my challenge on the video, I'd be interested in hearing about your experience, so comment below. And if you want to know more about who we are and what we do, visit our website at principlebasedliving.com.